네, 안녕하세요. 승승장구 이프로입니다. 오늘은 최근 디지털 자산 시장에서 가장 주목받고 있는 두 가지 키워드 RWA, 실물자산 토큰화와 국채 기반 스테이블 코인에 대한 우리 리플의 입장에 대해서 이야기를 해보려고 합니다. 이 주제는 단순한 기술적 트렌드를 넘어서 글로벌 금융시장의 패러다임을 바꾸고 있는데요. 이제 리플의 사장 모니카 론 같은 경우에 최근 인터뷰에서 지금이 이 시장의 전환점이라고 이야기를 했습니다. 글로벌 기업의 재무 전략을 바꾸고 국경을 넘는 자본 흐름을 실시간화하며 블록체인 기반의 신뢰와 효율성을 접목시키는 새로운 금융 혁신이라고까지 이야기를 했는데요. 해당 부분 내용이다 보니까 제가 의역과 오역이 있으면 안 되어서 영상 제작하는 데에 정말 오랜 시간 걸렸는데 고생했다는 의미에서 구독, 좋아요, 알람 설정 한 번씩 눌러주시고요. 다른 건 몰라도 좋아요는 꼭 한 번씩 눌러주세요. 그리고 해당 부분 같은 경우에는 우리 리플뿐 아니라 암호화폐 전체 트렌드에 대해서 이야기를 하는 만큼 끝까지 시청을 해보시고요. 여러분들의 의견 또한 영상 보시고 난 후 댓글로 남겨주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그럼 바로 영상 시청하시겠습니다.
Then the third thing is, of course, RLUSD. This is probably the newest one. Why do you guys get into the stablecoin game? What was the kind of reasoning there, and what are your hopes for it?
Yeah, so having been facilitating payments for a long time, stablecoins became a really obvious need for our customers. So the way we have facilitated payments for our customers in the past is mostly through Xrp, using it as kind of a bridge asset so that, the cross-border transfer happens really quickly and very low cost. However, digital asset, I would say like independent cryptocurrencies, crypto-based currencies, can be, volatile. So increasingly, customers have desire to use US dollar stable coins. I think the other thing too, because the other thing I should mention is, the composition of our customer base is a lot of businesses that are not in the United States. So places like Asia Pacific, Latin America, certainly Europe and the Middle East, but just taking the first two regions, there's desire for access to US dollars. Like stablecoins, stablecoins are very successful in crypto amongst, crypto users and to do any kind of crypto trading. But also just the simple use case of access to US dollars is a really big one. So for those reasons, we have been using USD stables in our payment flows in a mix with XRP. So really, it was just recognition that, wow, this is a really big opportunity. There's going to be more and more demand for payments through US dollar stablecoins. Being a provider to companies of that service, it would make sense that we launch our own. And, also a recognition that the stablecoin market has been growing and it's going to balloon even more, especially seeing RWA tokenization on the horizon. It's going to only drive more and more demand for stablecoins.
You need the cash side of a transaction if you're going to buy it with something. Yeah. So what are you going to buy it with? Are you going to buy it with a Swift payment or some sort of stable coin? It makes complete sense. And you make a great point that I think sometimes in the US in particular, and somewhat in Europe as well, we get very locked into, well, this isn't useful to me today. But the question is, well, it's not about me. It's who's it useful for and why and when. And I think that if your customers are in those other parts of the world, being able to serve them, but also you have some relationships with some banks who could potentially, as Kai likes to say, every company needs a stablecoin strategy. And if you're already acting as an advisor on RWA, every company needs an RWA strategy. And how are these things going to start to come together?
Yeah, definitely have seen that demand from some of those banks we work with. I can say, I mean, SocGen is certainly forward facing or forward leaning on that. They issued a euro stablecoin on multiple chains, and one XP Ledger being one of them, but multiple chains. So yeah, I think they can see, yeah, the kind of more innovative banks are seeing that as something where I like what you said, that you need a stablecoin strategy.
Every company needs a stablecoin strategy. Every bank needs an RWA strategy. It's Kai Sheffield. He takes full credit for it. The guy's good at what he does. What can I say? We've had Societe Generale on the show previously. They talked about this. We've had BBVA on the show. They talked about their work with Visa's VTAP. I think the European financial institutions probably felt like they had permission because of MiCA. But in the US, regulation has been a little bit less clear. But considering you're a US-based company, there's been a change in administration. Sort of what's your readout now as to what the opportunity looks like in the domestic United States for some of these technologies?
It feels like the floodgates are going to open this year, doesn't it? I mean, so within the past week, a couple weeks, so SAB 121 being called back or rolled back. And I mean, within, it felt like minutes, you hear from CEOs like Bank of America saying, we're all in. And, these are institutions that Bank of America was one of our early partners when we were doing kind of like the messaging software only payment solution. So we've worked with these types of banks for a long time, and the lack of clarity, and I think in the more recent time, even hostility toward, hey, using these assets and this technology is not okay. It's dangerous, which is not the best way to handle it, as we would say. But looking forward, I would say, yes, it seems like there's going to be a sea change this year. And even I could say post-November, the US election result, even just the ongoing conversations we've had with banks around being reserve bank or transaction banking partners for the stablecoin or for our payments business, like the tone and message changed overnight. Like, it was quick.
The signaling is really powerful, isn't it? Like Nick Carter is famous for talking about Operation Choke Point. Now, whether that did or did not exist is largely not the point. The tone makes a difference in the business you can do, and the tone is set by the regulators and interpreted by compliance people. And there's an old saying that the Bank of England used to govern by its eyebrow movements. And I think it's not wrong. Like the tone is really, really mattering. But the opportunity there to do something, and for institutions, just for your daily business, to get access to bank accounts, to be able to make payments, to get banking partners is a huge unlock for just doing business, which, was being slow walked before, arguably. So what's your kind of like take on where this goes in 2025? We get there's talk of no more CBDCs in the United States, but there are CBDCs around the world. Like, what's your are we going to head towards a world where there are some CBDCs, some stable coins, or is that idea sort of starting to look passé now?
I believe that the future will have CBDCs and stable coins. I believe there will be, this is borrowing, Chris Larson was one of the co-founders of Ripple. He's our executive chairman now, but even when I joined the company, I remember he would talk about what's on the horizon is a Cambrian explosion of different types of assets and tokenization of different forms of value. CBDCs, governments, central banks are never going to cede their sovereignty over money. I think that makes sense. And I think a CBDC could make sense as a digitized system for a given country. I look at the success of PIX in Brazil or UPI in India as really game changing for those countries and the people. I don't know if that's obviously that's not a exactly apples to apples analogy with the CBDC, but I just kind of, I don't know, mapping inspiration from that. The thing is, so we worked on some CBDC projects with different central banks, and there's some really keen minds within these central banks who are forward looking, but it's going to take a long time. And I don't know exactly what the roadmap looks like in terms of which countries adopt first. But in the meantime, I still think even in that future, having stable coins, will be a part of the picture. Because, liquidity and usage, there's a strong network effect to a stablecoin that has a broad user base, trust in the issuer, and a lot of liquidity. It's hard to displace.
It's an interesting question of what's backing the stablecoin. There were questions about Terra Luna and what was backing that. But then at the same time, there's been questions about Tether. But with the USDC and a Paxos and an RLUSD, the model is a little bit clearer. And so what's backing it, number one? So what's the credit risk? And number two, what's the utility? If the utility is I can move money dollars cross-border, I can hold it in another country, I can off-ramp quite easily, then there's an ideal customer for that product. The ideal customer for that is probably not Bank of America, because they can move money cross borders. They're absolutely fine. But Bank of America and even the fintech companies in the United States don't have 24/7 access to Fed master accounts and the ability to move monies with zero credit risk. CBDCs could potentially, in a wholesale world, give them that. And so the market loves to create these all narratives. It's like CBDCs, all stable coins. But the world of payments has always had lots of different payment systems with lots of different people who have access to them. And the amount of money I move via PIX is very different to what I move via FedWire, which is very different to something else. So, yeah, we love this either or narrative, and it never seems to kind of play out that way. But what do you see coming for? You alluded to it earlier, stablecoins and real world assets, because that's really getting into the institutional space. How are these things overlapping, and what are you seeing from your clients, from the market? Is that finally happening? Because this feels like it's been about to happen for at least a decade.
Yeah. I think it is coming up on its tipping point. We're seeing it with T-bills. I think, rewinding to last year, BlackRock's BIDL fund has obviously been a success. And then you see Franklin Templeton follow, and many other, large asset managers. And I think what's interesting with tokenizing money market funds or T-bills, that kind of form of asset, is the efficiency that institutional markets can gain from posting it as collateral, where there's a kind of interest earning instrument now that's can be on a real-time rail that's operates 24/7. And whether it's in institutional markets or in payments, you think about corporate treasurers, that need for 24/7. Sorry to rewind the tape of what I'm thinking of. You said something earlier of, if we're in the US or in Europe even, and we feel like, well, this kind of works for me, and yes, there's definitely parts of the world where the payment systems do not work at all for people. But even in markets across the world, there's these kind of maybe less noticed pain points of moving vast amounts of money, and it happens a lot outside of the banking hours. So I think that 24/7 value proposition resonates heavily in the world of markets and corporates and, generally.
It's not a relatable problem that I can't move a couple of $1 million after 5 p.m. But
Right.
actually, that can make a meaningful difference to your bottom line and your risk as a business. The thing that the 24/7 thing just sounds like, well, duh, like everything's 24/7. Well, wait, it's not. If
Mhm.
I'm a global company like Tesla or SpaceX, and or I've suddenly acquired all of these dollars from around the world or all of this
Yeah.
currency, I want to get that into treasuries as fast as possible, because every minute I'm not, I'm losing money. And this is when people get the joke of DVP and instant swaps between tokenized treasuries and stable coins, is it is 24/7. Like, and all I need is compatible software and the right licensing. So the treasury management and some of the direct custody elements of that, like I don't have to send an instruction to somebody who'll wake up tomorrow to figure out to go do that. I can have access to it. It's democratizing what corporate treasury looks like, and the idea of bringing that to more people is hugely exciting. Where are you seeing that sort of take off? Is it more on the institutional side in the United States domestically? You're seeing it more with the banks? Because I always imagine the corporate treasuries and the PSPs might be the place that would want to do that.
Speaking of RWAs.
Yeah, and especially with the treasuries and kind of stables split.
Yes. So in terms of in which markets we are like hearing directly from that kind of user, more markets like Asia and LATAM. I think that's probably because there's also, it's not just the banking cutoff window that they're trying to compete with, but it's also access to dollars plus pricing. So there's kind of bigger pain points. So I think that's why we're probably hearing more from them. I think that more corporates around the world would adopt this technology if it was easier. Like, it's that problem of, oh, I'm not gonna like go through the trouble of figuring out, I've got enough problems managing my business. I'm not gonna go through the trouble of figuring out how to blockchain enable it. So, I mean, I think that is why a company like Ripple and, there's many others in our space who are working on these problems, but like, we got to make it easy and put the software wrapper, the licensing, tight compliance controls within the product, so that they don't have to worry about it and they still get the benefits.
Yeah, I think about companies like Ramp and Brex and how they've democratized the ability to buy treasuries, but only if you're in the US. Like, it's kind of a standard feature. What happens if that goes global and the equivalents of the global Brex, the global Ramps and all those guys? I think it can become something that Ripple enables.
네, 여러분, 앞선 영상 잘 보셨을까요? 이제 리플에 대한 미래뿐만 아니라 암호화폐 시장 전체에 대한 여러 많은 얘기가 오갔었습니다. 네, 그러면 오늘도 영상 요약 도와드릴 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 리플 같은 경우에는 수년간 글로벌 결제 솔루션을 제공해온 기업입니다. 이 과정에서 명확하게 드러난 흐름 중 하나가 고객들 사이에서 미국 달러 기반 스테이블 코인의 수요가 꾸준히 증가하고 있다라는 점이었습니다. 기존에는 XRP 코인을 브릿지 자산으로 사용해서 빠르고 저렴한 크로스보더 결제를 가능하게 했지만, XRP 코인과 같이 독립된 디지털 자산은 가격 변동성이라는 태생적인 한계가 있었다라는 거죠. 기업 고객에는 예측 가능성과 안정성이 훨씬 더 중요했다라는 겁니다. 특히 이제 아시아 태평양, 라틴 아메리카 시장에서는 달러 접근성 자체가 큰 니즈였습니다. 유럽이라든지 미국 같은 경우에는 은행, 인프라가 잘 구축되어 있기는 하지만 전 세계적으로는 아직도 결제 시스템이 불안정한 지역이 많습니다. 그래서 이러한 환경에서는 스테이블 코인, 즉 디지털 달러로 언제든지 거래할 수 있는 수단이 기업에게는 굉장히 큰 가치가 됩니다. 리플은 이미 XRP와 스테이블 코인을 혼합한 결제 시스템을 일부 도입해 테스트를 해왔고, 그 경험을 통해 이건 우리가 본격적으로 진출해야 할 시장이다 라는 확신을 가지게 되었다라는 건데요. 그렇다라고 하면 이 스테이블 코인 시장은 어디로 향하고 있을까요? 바로 실물 자산의 토크나 흔히 RWA라고 불리는 영역과의 결합입니다. 예를 들어 작년 블랙록이 출시한 BUIDL 펀드, 일명 비들 펀드라고 하죠. 이 펀드는 토큰화된 국채 시장의 성공적인 시작을 알렸고, 프랭클린 템플턴 같은 대형 자산 운용사들도 잇따라 참여를 하고 있다라는 겁니다. 그렇다라고 하면 이 흐름이 왜 중요한 걸까요? 이제 국채나 머니마켓 펀드 같은 안전자산이 토큰화 된다라고 하면 기관 투자자들은 이를 담보로 사용을 하면서 실시간으로 자산을 이동시킬 수가 있게 된다라는 겁니다. 즉 24시간 일주일 내내 작동하는 금융 인프라가 현실이 된다라는 이야기이죠. 여기서 중요한 포인트는 바로 기업 재무관리의 혁신입니다. 예를 들어 글로벌 기업들, 테슬라나 스페이스X 같은 기업들은 전 세계에서 다양한 통화로 수익을 얻습니다. 그 수익을 가능한 한 빨리 안전적인 자산, 이제 예를 들어 토큰화된 국채로 전환하기를 원하죠. 왜냐하면 매 시간이 비용이고 또 수익이기 때문입니다. 이때 필요한 것이 바로 스테이블 코인과 RWA 간의 실시간 교환, 즉 DVP, 동시 결제이고요. 리플은 이 시스템의 분산형 인프라 제공자로서 중요한 역할을 맡을 수가 있습니다. 그리고 이런 실제 수요는 미국 내 기관보다 아시아, 태평양 지역, 그리고 라틴 아메리카 지역에서 훨씬 더 빠르게 반응하고 있습니다. 이러한 지역들 같은 경우에는 단순히 은행 문이 닫혀서 돈을 못 움직이는 수준을 넘어서 애초에 달러에 접근하는 것 자체가 어렵기 때문이죠. 이 때문에 RLUSD 같은 스테이블 코인들이 이들 지역에서는 단순한 송금 수단을 넘어서 비즈니스 운영을 위한 핵심 금융 인프라가 되고 있다라는 겁니다. 여기서 이제 리플의 역할이 굉장히 중요해지는데요. 기업들이 블록체인 기술을 도입하려면 일반적으로 기술에 대한 이해, 규제, 그리고 라이선스 확보 등등 수많은 장벽에 부딪히게 됩니다. 하지만 대부분의 기업은 이렇게 말하죠. 우리는 사업하기도 바쁜데 블록체인까지 공부할 여유는 없다. 그래서 리플이 나서게 되는 겁니다. 기술, 규제, 컴플라이언스 요소들을 하나의 솔루션에 통합을 해서 기업이 별도로 고민하지 않게 만드는 것, 그것이 리플의 강점이고 RLUSD 또한 그 연장선상에 서 있다라는 겁니다. 자, 마무리를 하자면은 RLUSD 같은 경우에는 단순한 스테이블 코인 출시가 아닙니다. 글로벌 금융 인프라를 혁신하기 위한 전략적 확장이며 실물자산 토큰화의 결합을 통해 미래의 자산 운용 방식을 근본적으로 바꾸려는 시도입니다. 그리고 그 중심에는 24시간 7일 운영되는 디지털 자산 네트워크라는 지금까지는 상상 속에만 있던 새로운 금융 시스템이 자리 잡고 있다라는 것이고요. 리플은 현재 그 전환점에 서 있다라는 것입니다. 네, 여러분 오늘 영상 잘 보셨을까요? 오늘은 제가 3부 영상 가지고 왔는데요. 1부, 2부 앞선 영상 놓치신 분들 같은 경우에는 영상 더보기란에 제가 링크 올려놨으니까 챙겨보시기를 바라고요. 이후 영상은 차차 올릴 예정으로 이어지는 내용 또한 오늘처럼 굉장히 중요한 내용이니까요. 구독하셔가지고 꼭 챙겨보시길 바라겠습니다. 저는 그럼 다음 영상으로 찾아뵐 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 긴 시간 시청 너무나도 감사합니다.